My name is Dorothy, and at 67 years old, I thought I had seen everything life could throw at me. I raised 4 children as a single mother after my husband Harold passed away when I was just 42. I worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, to keep food on the table and send my children to good schools. My hands grew rough from cleaning offices at night and working in the school cafeteria during the day, but my heart remained soft for my family. Of all my children, my youngest son, Robert, held a special place in my heart, not because I loved him more than the others, but because he reminded me so much of his father, gentle, kind, and always thinking of others before himself. When Robert introduced me to Priscilla 3 years ago, I welcomed her with open arms. She was beautiful, that much was obvious, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes. But beauty fades, I always believed, and character is what matters. How wrong I was about Priscilla's character. The first warning sign came during their engagement dinner. I had spent 3 days preparing Robert's favorite meal, pot roast with all the fixings, just like his grandmother used to make. Priscilla took one look at the spread and wrinkled her nose. "Oh my," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "This is so rustic." "Robert, darling, you didn't tell me your mother was still cooking like we're living in the 1950s. Robert laughed nervously and squeezed her hand. "Mom's cooking is the best, Pris. You'll love it once you try it." But she barely touched her plate, spending most of the evening scrolling through her phone and making comments about how quaint everything was. I bit my tongue and smiled, telling myself she was just nervous about meeting the family. If you're enjoying this story of family drama and ultimate justice, please consider joining our community by clicking that subscribe button. Stories like these remind us that sometimes standing up for ourselves leads to the most unexpected outcomes. The wedding was a lavish affair that cost more than I made in 2 years. Priscilla's parents spared no expense, and I felt completely out of place among the crystal chandeliers and imported flowers. I wore my best dress, a navy blue outfit I'd bought for my daughter Margaret's wedding 5 years earlier, and thought I looked quite presentable. But when Priscilla saw me, her face fell. "Oh, Dorothy," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. "That dress is so dated. Robert, couldn't you have taken your mother shopping? She's going to look so out of place in all the photos." My cheeks burned with embarrassment, but Robert was already being pulled away by the photographer. I spent the wedding reception sitting at a corner table, watching my son dance with his new bride while her friends whispered and pointed in my direction. The real trouble began 6 months after they moved into their new house. A house that Robert had saved for years to buy, working overtime at the construction company and taking on weekend projects. Priscilla had quit her job at the boutique after the wedding, claiming she needed time to establish their home and network with the right people. I tried to visit once a week, bringing homemade cookies or a casserole, just like I did for all my children. But Priscilla made it clear I wasn't welcome. "Dorothy, you really should call before coming over," she said one Tuesday afternoon, not even inviting me inside. "We have a certain aesthetic we're trying to maintain, and unexpected visitors can be disruptive." I stood on their doorstep, holding a still warm apple pie, feeling like a beggar at my own son's door. I just wanted to bring Robert his favorite pie. I remember he used to love them when he was little. "Well, he's not little anymore," Priscilla replied curtly. "And we're trying to eat healthier these days. All that sugar and butter isn't good for maintaining one's figure." Her eyes traveled up and down my body meaningfully. That's when I realized she wasn't just being difficult, she was being cruel. The situation worsened over the following months. Priscilla would cancel family dinners at the last minute, always, with some excuse about Robert being too tired or them having other plans. When I did manage to see my son, he looked exhausted and stressed. But whenever I tried to ask him about it, Priscilla would appear and steer the conversation elsewhere. Then came the day that changed everything. I had stopped by their house to deliver some of Robert's old photo albums that I'd found while cleaning out the attic. Photos of him as a baby, his first day of school, his high school graduation, memories I thought he'd want to share with his wife. Priscilla answered the door in her yoga clothes, her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. "What now, Dorothy?" she sighed, not bothering with pleasantries. "I brought some of Robert's baby pictures. I thought you might enjoy seeing them, maybe put them in an album together." She glanced at the box dismissively. "We're not really into the whole nostalgia thing. Our house has a very modern, minimalist aesthetic. Old photographs don't really fit the vibe we're going for." My heart sank, but I pressed on. "Maybe just a few? For your bedroom, or—" "Look, Dorothy," Priscilla interrupted, stepping closer to me. "I need to be honest with you about something. Robert and I have been talking, and we think it would be better if you limited your visits. You're a sweet old lady, but you don't really understand our lifestyle. Your constant dropping by with your outdated cooking and old-fashioned ideas. It's just not working for us." I felt as if she'd slapped me. "I'm just trying to be a good mother. I love my son, and I want to be part of his life." Priscilla's laugh was cold and sharp. "That's just it, though. You're not part of his life anymore. He has a wife now, and we're building something new together. Something that doesn't include—" She paused, looking me up and down with undisguised disgust. "Well, let's just say we're trying to surround ourselves with beauty and success. We can't have people around who don't reflect those values." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I maintained my composure. "What exactly are you saying, Priscilla?" She smiled then, a cruel, satisfied expression that I'll never forget. "I'm saying that you're old, Dorothy. You're old and you're ugly, and frankly, you're an embarrassment. Every time Robert's colleagues or my friends see you, they wonder what kind of family he comes from. You drag us down with your shabby clothes and your working-class manners. Robert's too polite to say it, but I'm not. We don't want you around anymore." The box of photographs slipped from my hands, scattering pictures of my beloved son across their pristine doorstep. But I didn't bend to pick them up. Instead, I looked Priscilla straight in the eye. "I see," I said quietly. "Thank you for being so honest." I turned and walked away, leaving the scattered memories behind me. I didn't cry until I reached my car, and then the tears came in great, shuddering sobs that seemed to tear something deep inside my chest. That night, I called my daughter Margaret and told her everything. Margaret was furious, threatening to drive over and give Priscilla a piece of her mind, but I stopped her. "No," I said. "I need to think about this. I need to decide how I want to handle it." For 3 days, I barely left my house. I kept thinking about Priscilla's words, wondering if there was truth in them. Was I really so ugly, so embarrassing? I looked at myself in the mirror and saw the lines on my face, the gray in my hair, the calluses on my hands from years of hard work. But then I remembered something my mother used to tell me. "Beauty isn't about what you look like, Dorothy. It's about how you treat people and what you do with the life God gave you." I had raised 4 successful, kind children. I had volunteered at the church for 20 years, helping with food drives and visiting shut-ins. I had worked myself to the bone to give my family a better life. If that made me ugly in Priscilla's eyes, then so be it. But I wasn't going to take her cruelty lying down. The opportunity for justice came sooner than I expected. Robert called me on Friday, his voice excited and nervous. "Mom, I have some amazing news. Priscilla's been accepted for a cosmetic surgery procedure she's been wanting, a full face and body makeover. The surgeon is one of the best in the city, but it's expensive, really expensive." My heart sank. "How expensive, son?" $50,000, he said, and I could hear the strain in his voice. We don't have that kind of money saved up, especially not with the mortgage and everything. But Priscilla says it's important for her self-confidence, and she's been so unhappy lately. I knew where this was going, and part of me admired the cruel irony of it. I was wondering, Robert continued hesitantly, if maybe you could help us out. I know it's a lot to ask, but you've always been so generous with the family, and I promise we'll pay you back every penny. Here's the thing Robert didn't know. I wasn't poor. Yes, I had worked hard all my life and lived modestly, but I had also been very careful with money. Harold had left me a decent life insurance policy, and I had invested it wisely over the years. Between that, my modest pension, and the inheritance from my parents, I had accumulated a substantial nest egg, nearly $300,000 that I had planned to leave to my children. Robert also didn't know that Priscilla had called me herself just 2 days after our doorstep confrontation. She had been sweet as pie, as if nothing had happened. "Dorothy, dear," she had cooed into the phone. "I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to discuss something important with you. Robert mentioned that you've been quite successful with your investments over the years, and well, I have an opportunity that could really benefit our family." She had gone on to explain about the surgery, painting it as something that would help her represent the family better and give Robert the confidence boost he needed in his career. She even had the audacity to suggest that helping her look better would reflect well on me as a mother-in-law. After all, she had said, people judge a man by the company he keeps, and that includes his family. If I look my best, it makes everyone look better, don't you think? I had listened to the entire pitch without saying a word, and when she finished, I simply said, "I'll consider it." Now, with Robert on the phone asking for the same favor, I had to make a choice. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more stories about family drama and the importance of standing up for yourself. The best part of this story is still coming. "Mom?" Robert's voice brought me back to the present. "Are you still there?" "Yes, dear, I'm here. I'm thinking about what you've asked. I know it's a lot of money, and I understand if you can't do it. Priscilla will be disappointed, but we'll figure something else out." The pain in my son's voice nearly broke my resolve. He clearly had no idea what his wife had said to me. He was just a man trying to make his wife happy, not knowing the kind of person she really was. "Robert," I said carefully, "can I ask you something? Are you happy? Really happy?" There was a long pause. "What do you mean, Mom?" "I mean, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel joy? Do you feel like yourself?" Another pause, longer this time. Things have been stressful lately. The mortgage, Priscilla's unhappiness with how she looks, trying to keep up with her friends' lifestyles. Sometimes I feel like I'm working myself to death just to afford the life she wants us to have. My heart ached for him. And what do you want, son? What would make you happy? I just want peace, Mom. I want to come home from work and not have to worry about whether the house is clean enough, or whether we have the right kind of wine for dinner, or whether Priscilla is upset about something new. I miss the simple things. You know? I miss our family dinners. I miss your apple pie. I miss feeling like I was enough, just as I am. That's when I knew what I had to do. Robert, I want you to listen to me very carefully. I love you more than life itself. And I want you to be happy, but I can't give you money for Priscilla's surgery. Mom, I understand. Let me finish, I interrupted gently. I can't give you the money because Priscilla came to see me last week. She told me some things that I think you should know about. I told him everything. About the comments at their wedding, about being made to feel unwelcome in their home, and finally, about that terrible day when she called me old and ugly and an embarrassment. I told him about the scattered photographs and the way she had looked at me with such contempt. The silence on the other end of the phone stretched so long that I thought the call had dropped. Robert? Are you there? When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. She said that to you? She called you ugly? Yes, son. She did. I heard him take a shuddering breath. Mom, I am so sorry. I had no idea. She told me you two had a little disagreement, but she said it was just a misunderstanding about boundaries. There was no misunderstanding, Robert. She made herself very clear. I can't believe. I mean, she can be difficult sometimes, but I never thought she would be cruel to you. You're my mother. You're the most important woman in my life. Am I, Robert? Because it hasn't felt that way lately. He was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, stronger, more resolved. What can I do to fix this, Mom? How can I make this right? You don't need to fix anything for me, son. But you need to decide what kind of life you want to live and what kind of person you want to be married to. A woman who would speak to your mother that way. What does that tell you about her character? That weekend, I didn't hear from Robert at all. I worried that I had pushed too hard, that I had driven a wedge between us that could never be repaired. But on Monday morning, he showed up at my door with tears in his eyes and pulled me into the biggest hug. I'm so sorry, Mom, he whispered into my hair. I'm so sorry. We sat in my kitchen, and he told me everything. How Priscilla had been pressuring him to cut ties with the family, claiming we were holding him back. How she had run up credit card bills buying designer clothes and expensive treatments, always with the excuse that she needed to look the part for his career. How she had made him feel guilty for every dollar he spent that wasn't on her, including the small amounts he sometimes sent to help his older brother Donald with his medical bills. She's been telling me that you disapprove of her, that you think she's not good enough for me, Robert said. I thought maybe if I kept some distance, things would smooth over eventually. I never imagined she was being so cruel to you. I made him a cup of coffee and sat across from him at the same table where I had helped him with his homework 20 years earlier. What are you going to do, son? He rubbed his face tiredly. I don't know. I mean, I know what I should do, but it's complicated. We just bought the house and all our finances are tangled together. And despite everything, I did make vows to her. Vows work both ways, Robert. Has she honored her commitment to love and respect you? And by extension, your family? He shook his head slowly. No, I don't think she has. Over the next few weeks, I watched my son struggle with his decision. Priscilla, meanwhile, became increasingly agitated about the delay in funding her surgery. She called me several more times, each conversation more demanding than the last. Dorothy, I don't understand what the holdup is, she said during one particularly unpleasant call. Robert says you're thinking about it. But how much thinking does it take? Either you have the money, or you don't. I have the money, Priscilla. Then what's the problem? Are you really going to let your petty jealousy stand in the way of your son's happiness? My jealousy? Oh, please. It's obvious you resent me for taking Robert away from you. You're one of those possessive mothers who can't stand to see their sons with other women. But Robert is a grown man, and he's chosen me. The sooner you accept that, the better off we'll all be. I almost laughed at the irony. Here she was, asking me for $50,000 while simultaneously insulting me. But I kept my voice level. Priscilla, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Do you love my son? Of course I love him. What kind of question is that? Do you respect him? Yes, I respect him. He's my husband. Do you respect me? A long pause. I think you're a nice enough woman, Dorothy. We just have different perspectives on things. That's not what you said when you called me old and ugly and an embarrassment. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was cold. I think you misunderstood what I said. I was just trying to help you see that there are ways you could improve yourself, make yourself more presentable. By calling me ugly? I never used that word. But we both knew she was lying. That evening, Robert came to see me again. He looked like he had aged years in the past few weeks, but there was something different about him, a resolve that hadn't been there before. I've made my decision, Mom, he said. I'm filing for divorce. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that my son was finally standing up for himself and his family, but sadness that his marriage had come to this. Are you sure, Robert? This isn't something you can easily undo. He nodded firmly. I've been thinking about what you said, about what kind of person I want to be married to. And the truth is, I don't want to be married to someone who would treat my mother the way Priscilla treated you. If she can be that cruel to the woman who raised me, what does that say about her heart? What finally made you decide? He smiled ruefully. She made a mistake yesterday. She started talking about you in front of me the same way she had talked to you. She didn't know I was listening, but she was on the phone with one of her friends, complaining about how your shabby appearance was embarrassing to the family. She said she couldn't wait to get the surgery money from you so she could stop pretending to tolerate the old bat. My heart ached for him, but I was proud of his strength. I'm sorry, son. I know this isn't easy. No, it's not. But you know what? For the first time in months, I feel like I can breathe. I feel like myself again. The divorce proceedings were messy, as these things often are. Priscilla was furious when she realized the money for her surgery wasn't coming, and she made several attempts to contact me directly. She even showed up at my house once, demanding that I reconsider. "You're ruining my life," she screamed from my front porch. "All because you're jealous and bitter and can't stand to see your son happy." I looked at her through my screen door, this woman who had called me ugly, who had tried to drive a wedge between me and my child, and I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt sorry for her. "Priscilla," I said quietly, "I hope someday you find the kind of happiness that doesn't require tearing other people down." She stormed off, and I never saw her again. If you've made it this far in the story, I hope you'll join our community by subscribing to hear more tales of family drama and personal triumph. Sometimes the most difficult situations lead to the most important discoveries about ourselves and the people we love. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. Robert moved back into a small apartment near his work, and slowly, he began to seem like himself again. He started coming to family dinners regularly, bringing flowers and helping with the dishes just like he used to do when he was young. He laughed more, smiled more, and most importantly, he seemed at peace. One evening, about a year after everything had settled, Robert and I were sitting on my back porch, watching the sunset and sharing a piece of the apple pie that had caused so much trouble in his marriage. "Mom," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology." "For what, dear?" "For letting someone treat you that way. For not standing up for you when I should have. You raised me better than that." I reached over and took his hand. "You don't owe me an apology, Robert. You were trying to make your marriage work. That's what good men do. But I should have seen what she was really like. I should have protected you. You did protect me, son. Maybe not at first, but when it mattered most, you chose what was right over what was easy. That takes courage." He squeezed my hand. "I never want to disappoint you again, Mom." "You could never disappoint me, Robert. I'm proud of the man you've become, even if it took a difficult journey to get there." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn pink and gold. Finally, Robert spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Did you ever really consider giving her the money for the surgery?" I smiled. For about 30 seconds. But then I realized that giving her that money would be like rewarding her cruelty. Besides, if she thought I was so ugly and embarrassing, why would she want anything from me? Robert laughed, a real, genuine laugh that I hadn't heard in far too long. "You know what the funny thing is? She was wrong about you. You're not ugly, Mom. You're beautiful. Maybe not in the way she understands beauty, but in all the ways that actually matter." "Thank you, son. That means more to me than you know." As the months passed, our family began to heal. Robert started dating again, but this time he was more careful, more selective. He introduced me to Sarah, a kind elementary school teacher who baked cookies for her students and volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends. When Sarah met me, she hugged me like we were old friends and asked if I would teach her how to make Robert's favorite pot roast. "I want to learn all his favorite things," she said with a warm smile. "Family recipes are so special. They're like love passed down through generations." I knew then that Robert had chosen well this time. The best part of this whole experience wasn't seeing Priscilla get her comeuppance, though I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some satisfaction in that. The best part was watching my son rediscover his own worth and learn to surround himself with people who valued him for who he truly was. About 2 years after the divorce, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Priscilla had found someone else to fund her cosmetic procedures, a wealthy older man who seemed to enjoy having a beautiful young woman on his arm. I felt sorry for both of them. She was still chasing external validation, and he was buying affection that would likely disappear the moment someone with more money came along. But that wasn't my concern anymore. My concern was my family, and my family was stronger than ever. Robert and Sarah married in a small ceremony in my backyard, surrounded by close friends and family. Sarah wore her grandmother's wedding dress, and I wore the same navy outfit I had worn to Robert's first wedding. But this time, when people looked at me, they saw a beloved mother and mother-in-law, not an embarrassment to be hidden away. During his wedding speech, Robert looked directly at me and said, "Mom, thank you for teaching me that real beauty comes from kindness. Strength comes from doing what's right even when it's hard. And love means accepting people exactly as they are. These are the values I want to build my marriage on." There wasn't a dry eye in the house. Now, at 70 years old, I'm surrounded by grandchildren who run to me with scraped knees and broken hearts, knowing that Grandma Dorothy will always have a bandage and a cookie and a story that makes everything better. My hands are still rough from years of work. My hair is completely gray now, and I have more wrinkles than I can count. But when I look in the mirror, I don't see an ugly old woman. I see a survivor, a fighter, a woman who raised good children and stood up for herself when it mattered most. Priscilla was wrong about many things, but she was especially wrong about beauty. Beauty isn't about having the perfect face or the perfect body or the perfect clothes. Beauty is about how you treat people when no one is watching. Beauty is about standing up for what's right, even when it costs you something. Beauty is about loving your family fiercely and teaching your children to value character over appearance. Beauty is about knowing your worth and refusing to let anyone convince you that you're less than you are. I kept that $50,000, by the way. I've used some of it to help Robert and Sarah with their first house, some to assist my other children with various needs, and the rest is sitting in an account designated for my grandchildren's education. Money spent on building up the people you love is never wasted. Money spent on someone who thinks you're ugly and embarrassing, well, that would have been the real waste. Sometimes people ask me if I ever regret not giving Priscilla the money, if I think I was too harsh or unforgiving. The answer is no. I don't regret it for a second. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I finally learned to value myself enough to not reward cruelty with generosity. My mother used to say, "Treat people the way you want to be treated, but don't let anyone treat you worse than you'd treat a stranger." It took me 67 years to really understand what she meant, but when I finally did, it changed everything. These days, when young women come to me for advice about difficult family situations, I tell them this: you teach people how to treat you by what you're willing to accept. If someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. And remember that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Your worth isn't determined by other people's opinions of you. Your worth is inherent, built into the very fabric of who you are. You are valuable because you exist, because you love, because you contribute something unique to this world that no one else can. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Certainly don't pay them $50,000 for the privilege of being insulted. As I finish writing this story, I can hear Robert and Sarah in the kitchen, preparing Sunday dinner while their 2 little ones play at my feet. The house is full of laughter and the smell of pot roast, and I am surrounded by people who love me not despite my age, or my wrinkles, or my working-class background, but because of the person those experiences have made me. This is what real beauty looks like. This is what a life well lived feels like. And if that makes me ugly in someone's eyes, well, that says more about them than it does about me. Remember, if stories like this resonate with you, tales of family, dynamics, personal growth, and the importance of knowing your own worth, please subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories about real people facing real challenges and finding the strength to overcome them. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't getting revenge on those who hurt us. Sometimes it's simply refusing to let their cruelty change who we are.